Serious question, Mike. What do you think is the long and short of the quote unquote Holocaust? Obviously, those were concentration camps, work camps, and anything else.
Yeah, but they weren't being burned and shit.
The long teased, I would say, Full House episode this time. Is that right?
It is, yes. I was originally planning this to be episode 96, back in the day. And then that one ended up being, I think there was a Cantwell News update that ended up taking it over. Full House is one that I've been, the show's been running since like 2018 or maybe very early 2019. So it's been running approximately the same length of time that this podcast has been going. And it's always been my little like ace in the hole. It's one that not a whole lot of people knew about, but if you knew about it, you could make a lot of connections. There was a lot of the people would let their hair down on Full House more so than they would in other places. So it was always nice to kind of get the lay of the land. And so I kind of deliberately held it back just so that I didn't know. And then when I started mentioning them occasionally on the show, then they talk about me, recognizing them. And so then I was like, well, they know someone is listening. They know I'm listening. Anyway. So now they haven't retired, but they don't release that many episodes anymore. And so I guess we're gonna kind of introduce you to this kind of content. And these are, as you heard in the cold open, these are explicit white nationalists. These are Jew-hating, Holocaust-denying, all but National Socialists. I think they probably quibble with the literal National Socialist part. But I mean, these guys are, every bit the white nationalist and National Socialists that you would imagine coming from the OG I Don't Speak German episodes. These are our bread and butter. This is what I'm used to. I listen to these guys. I've listened to every episode of this podcast from day one. So I am conversant with who these guys are. And we're going to go through a bunch of clips, and you're going to get to learn about various things that these people go on and on about.
Let's just dive straight into it. I feel like this has been a running ease, as I say, through for a very long time. We've frequently the subject of Full House, HAUS,
yes,
and Matthew Q. Gerbert has come up. But here it comes, the actual episode at long last. If you want to dive straight in, please do.
Okay. So the first thing you have to know is this guy, Matthew Q. Gerbert, I guess it's Gerbert. Doesn't have that first R. It's Gebert.
Oh, I always thought. Okay.
Yeah, I think I've continuously mispronounced it. He's a Nazi. I don't really care if I get his name right, but for accuracy, it is spelled Gerbert.
It's because it makes you think of Goering, probably. Or sorry, audience. We were talking about a possible future bonus episode before starting the episode proper, which is the movie Nuremberg, which is why Goering is in my brain now. It's my fault.
Goering is just kind of in our brains for whenever we sit down to record about anything. We could talk about My Little Pony, and one of us would be thinking about Herman Goring, probably. It's just the nature of this show,
He did love animals, so
he did, yes.
Goring's My Little Pony. My friendship with Hitler was magic.
Oh my God! Yes.
Anyway,
well, listen, you're trying to get me off track here. Okay, anyway. So
I'm like Cantwell in that respect. I stop you talking about Full House.
Yes, indeed. That is
and
the
no
only
other
way
respect.
you are. Yes, you are similar to Cantwell. Both have white skin. Yes, maybe that. Anyway.
Well, that's the most important thing, as we know.
Well, we're going to get into that. Believe me. Okay, we're going to get into that very soon. So, Gerbert was actually a member. He graduated in 2011 from George Washington University. He was on some alumni lists. He was kind of an up and comer. He joined the State Department in, I think, 2013. The U.S. State Department. It's kind of iffy. The firm details. I don't really have a whole lot of, kind of what he did and where he was, but he speaks a little bit of Russian, or at least he used to. I believe he was stationed in Russia. He was serving in some kind of official capacity. This is a guy working in the annals of the U.S. government. He was an up and comer. He was somebody who was being groomed for, higher up positions. There's a ton of great reporting done by Mike Hayden back when he was at the SPLC. I have linked to a couple of those here, and in those you could find other interior links if you want to know the full story. But that's who Matthew Q. Gerbert is, or was. because in 2019, after details of his attendance of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia on August 12th, 2017 were revealed, and his connection to his online alias, Coach Finstock, which he still kind of goes by Coach Finstock, or Finn, or Coach Finn. Coach Finstock being the name of the high school basketball coach in the 1986 film Teen Wolf. I probably have that date wrong. I saw Teen Wolf a bunch as a kid, but I haven't seen it as an adult, so it didn't stick with me. So the using characters from 80s teen properties in their propaganda and in their handles is pretty common for these guys. But yeah, no, he goes by Coach Finstock. It is very bizarre to me how many like cultural references I share with these fucking assholes. We all grew up watching the same goddamn movies. Anyway, it was a monoculture. It was the 80s. There were only so many channels, even with cable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Gubbert is the kind of the main man behind this, and Full House, if you really want to understand it, it's actually sort of a sequel podcast to a previously existing thing called The Fatherland. And Gubbert was not like the lead guy on The Fatherland, but he was on The Fatherland. The idea was this was actually one of the kind of TRS, the Right Stuff.biz of associated shows, like back in 2016, 2015, 2017, yearly up to 2018, 2019. But, for a long time, TRS was like, they just were like the reservoir where all the content went, where basically we'll put you on an RSS feed, we'll share around, we'll go into each of those podcasts, and we'll grow the movement that way. Very effective in that early alt-right era. And so The Fatherland was just kind of one of those affiliated, podcasts that were just on that feed. It was, TRS has always had this, rightfully had this reputation as being kind of the raunchiest version of itself, That's where you go to really you're just telling racist Jew jokes all day and you're just saying the N-word a bunch. Some like brain power justification, but it is meant to be like a Opie and Anthony if they were like openly racist. It's kind of what TRS always was. And The Fatherland was a little bit more subdued. It was meant to be kind of more like, no, we're older, we're dads, and we talk about fatherhood shit. We talk about what it's like to be a white nationalist dad and the problems of like how do you raise a white kid in this terrible world these days, And so, with a minimum of swearing, with a minimum of the bombasticness that we've seen from The Daily Show and from other shows of that era, because that stuff was absolutely pervasive in that time period. It was like, we're just going to go and try to out-edge each other over and over and over again. And The Fatherland was more subdued. And I listened to, Fatherland ended shortly. It ended right about the time of Unite the Right, when everybody went underground. And I think The Fatherland was one that just sort of poofed right about that instant. And so it actually, those episodes got removed before I started archiving. So I don't even have an archive of The Fatherland. Full House comes up a couple of years later. One of the original co-hosts, Gubbert was one of the original co-hosts, and he's now like the main guy on Full House. And it kind of a spiritual successor. It's like, we're going to do kind of the same thing that The Fatherland did. I can't really directly compare because I only listened to a couple of episodes of The Fatherland, mostly because it wasn't that interesting, because they weren't, being the super edgy edgelords talking about babies in ovens and cookies and shit. But, that's kind of what the show is. And on that level, I think if you took it upon yourself to listen to Full House on a, per episode basis, and you just sort of dipped in, listened to, 5 minutes here and there, a lot of the stuff they say, I mean, they're right-wing conservatives, but it's, kind of unobjectionable. A lot of it is, they talk a lot about, they do episodes of gardening, what's it like, growing your own food, homesteading. They do episodes on, potty training and, normal dad shit. And then they come back and then they go to batshit crazy land whenever they start talking about, their actual racial beliefs. I don't think it's meant to be like, we're going to lure them in with the family talk and then turn them into white nationalists. I think the idea is to explore, to as open white nationalists as an openly and explicitly white nationalist show. I think the goal is more to describe, just describe this other part of life and actually give life advice to, it's meant to be wholesome, I think, is the point that I'm trying to make, but in this like twisted world. And so, and I have to set that up because I have to start playing clips. This is all going to get put into like very weird context. It is a very weird thing to introduce people to this stuff. And so so what I did was I just went through all my old clips. I spent the last couple of days just like going through all those episodes, listening to little bits and pieces of them. And so I've tried to create a tapestry, and I've tried to kind of walk you through a little bit, kind of chronologically, although we're going to begin and end on a particular subject of some interest. that subject is sex. So we're about to start talking about Nazi sex here in
Ooh.
about 2 minutes. We've done it before,
Bound
but
to
now
get
we're
steamy in here.
it's about to get something. Anyway, I was gonna say sticky, but that also does not seem like it's gonna get real gross, but not the sex is beautiful. I love sex. I'm a sex geek. I love sex. These guys it's a different thing. Anyway, I'm just gonna introduce you to different things that I've heard. And if you like this format, these are easy to produce because I already have everything queued up. I don't organize it quite as neatly. And if you like it, then let me know, and this will be a new format for episodes. And if it doesn't work at all, we'll never do it again. So this first clip, and I'll introduce you to various other characters. They're kind of, other than Gerbert, they usually have a guest. They almost every episode has a special guest that comes in to talk about something of their expertise. But then you've got Michael McCavitt is one of the early members of Full House, although he stepped away after a certain incident during the National Justice Party era, in which case he had a threesome. And you remember we played a clip of Gerbert castigating McCavitt for having had a threesome. I told you sex was a big part of this. It's at least a part of it. And he goes by Potato Smasher. That's his nom de plume or nom de podcast in that era. Or I think because of his Irish heritage. I don't know. And then there's someone whose name's Sam. He has a fake last name, but I don't know. I don't think he's ever been identified. And Sam is this old school. I think he has like 9 kids, 10 kids, something like that, across 2 marriages. And his oldest kids are in their like mid-20s, I think, maybe late 20s at this point. And he's one of these old school National Socialists, one of these old school, wearing the screwdriver T-shirt in his 20s type thing. Lives outside of Chicago, or lives in Chicagoland. I think he lives either in the city or on the outskirts of the city. He's somewhere. I think he's actually in like northern Indiana, based on some things that he says. But so anyway, he's never been doxxed. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I'm just saying to my knowledge, he has never been doxxed. And he does. He's way into heavy metal and that's what he's this very old school Nazi guy.
Yeah.
And so those are our 3 kind of main people that we're going to see, at least at the beginning. And then as another character becomes prominent, we'll play a lot of clips of this other guy, but I'll kind of introduce you to him when that becomes relevant. So in this first clip, this is a response to a listener, like a Q&A, like a listener sent an email. And the email was very long, and I didn't want to play the whole thing. Effectively, what the listener is saying is, well, I've been dating this girl, and we've been dating for a few months, and we're kind of falling in love, and she's this beautiful white girl, but she has a past. And the past is she used to sleep with a black guy. And not only that, but her racist grandma is like, oh, at least this one's white. So this has happened several times. It's not just a one time I slept with a black guy, but you slept with enough black guys that it was a pattern for you. And so I've kind of given away what the response is, but let's hear it in their own voices. I think the first voice you hear will be McCavitt / Potato Smasher.
To wet your willy, you will think of Tyrone.
So every time you, as a white man, want to go fuck this girl that you love,
and your things will return to their normal state.
Now you're putting yourself in his shoes. You couldn't.
That second voice there is Gerbert. So that was Potato Smasher / McCavitt. Barely able to even function at the idea of sleeping with a woman who had routinely and with great pleasure, presumably, slept with black men in the past. McCavitt is
totally discombobulated by the concept.
He does not want to say burn this guy with fire, which I think is really what he wants to say. But the second voice there is Gerbert.
You could never get over that visceral image or aftertaste, to use a horrible metaphor.
Correct.
All right. Sam, what are you thinking on this one, big guy? Oh, boy.
I love how this is a genuine problem for these guys. It is a genuine oh, how could you ever get past that? This is, these guys, it's these guys, you're supposed to be hardcore Nazis, right? You're supposed to be the baddest guys on the block. You're supposed to be the Aryan warriors, out there saving the white race. And you just get the idea that this guy is sleeping with a girl, maybe experienced love with a black man is so vile to you. It's so you can't even process it emotionally. I mean, this is, by description. I mean, look, for me, it doesn't matter what the races are, but by description in this letter, I'm telling you, he's saying this is a beautiful white woman. I am in love with her. I want to have kids with her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But she has a past, and that past is she slept with black guys. It's so.
I'm a little bit afraid that Smasher's right there, but if I was talking to this guy and I got to know him well, I'd say you got to probe that situation a little bit and see where her mind is. He's already saying she's kind of liberal and things like that.
She's proud of it. She's proud of it.
That's an important. The liberal part is an important factor. Whether she's recalcitrant or apologetic or recognize the errors of her ways is an important factor, which we don't know in this one. Yeah,
right. It'd be one. I hope springs eternal with me, and I hate to give up on anybody. I'm always rooting for people to get together and do the right thing. So I would say you got to probe that a little more. You got to give it a little more time and probe and continue to
probe. He uses probe like 8 times in a row.
He's very fixated on the word probe.
And I mean, the whole thing is like, well, she's a liberal. I mean, hey, this is like a liberal girl. She's dating someone who she knows is a white nationalist. Like, that's again part of the backstory here.
Yeah.
And she's like going with you. Like, she, like it seems to me like, this is not something you need to worry so much about. Like, in these guys' world, you're just gonna fuck her into being a Nazi yourself. Just give her great white dick and outfit. It'll be fine. But that's not, they're legitimately like, oh my God, how could you live with your life that way and know that your wife has been with a black dude? God, I bet she's even tasted black cock. Oh man, that's just vile. Yeah, no.
It's almost like there's some kind of insecurity at work here,
almost.
Tell her and show her the right way, and she might come around to seeing that. Yeah, that's bad. That's in the past. I was, stupid. I was young.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a tough one. What Smasher raises there is a good point, that without getting a little more resolution to this might come back into your mind again and again.
Yeah. My first gut reaction, which is what I usually go with in these, and I was putting myself in his shoes, is that I don't think I could get over that image, that knowledge, just because it's too sordid and too against everything that we stand for. It's sort of like a tattoo that can't be removed. However,
okay, and I didn't include the however, but the however. Would you like to guess what the however? Would you like to guess?
I was on tenterhooks to learn what the caveat was.
I was going to include it. It went on. He babbles around it. I'm just going to give it to you. Do you want to guess what the however was going to be?
I could not even begin to guess, and I'm very proud to say that.
Well, wouldn't it feel great? Okay, so if you drop this girl, she's probably just going to go back to fucking black guys or whatever, and we lose one for the team. We lose a beautiful white girl to the enemy, to the subhumans, right? But if you keep her and she's yours, A, you're going to be making white babies, and B, you took one from the other team. You converted one back to you. So it's like a numbers game. It's like it's like you're scoring points at a baseball game or something. It's literally like that. That concrete. It's just a bizarre. It's just a bizarre way to think. It's funny. I can think like these guys because I've spent so much time in their world. But it really is one of those things where I feel like I really have to walk you through this logic a little bit. It's very different. Like you said, like Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly, and it's like, well, most of what they're saying is because there's some corporate speak they're trying to triangulate. These guys aren't doing that at all. These guys are just saying what they think. I mean, they're obviously trying to couch this. I mean, I think in another place they would have said, fuck that girl, don't get away from her, find yourself. Anyway, we'll talk more about the fairer sex as this episode continues. Anyway, any immediate thoughts, or shall we move on to how they want to reach out to leftists? That's the next topic.
Oh, I got to hear this immediately, please.
Okay. Well, they talk a lot. This was that original one was from episode 76. So that was from 2021 or 2022, somewhere there. I have the exact date in my notes, but it's This one is from 2024. So we're jumping ahead quite a bit of time. And useful to note that this is during the time period when students at Columbia and other universities were doing protests over, like universities supporting the war in Gaza, supporting Israel effectively. And the responses to those protests by the Nazi community, who very much liked the fact that people were standing up against Israel because they thought it was, you're standing up against the Jews. So this is my longest clip. We will be breaking this into segments, and
they had that delusion in common with most of the American mainstream media, as I recall.
Yes. Well, but on the other side, it's like, no, you need to be actually anti-Semitic, actually, that's kind of the point of this thing. And this is 4 minutes long. We will pause and talk through this a bit. Please interrupt it whenever you need to. We're not going to play 4 minutes on it. Don't worry. And there are easy stopping points in here. I got it in my notes here. This is from episode 185, and this one of our main speakers here is our protagonist. So at this point, McEvitt has left the podcast, and this guy Rollo. He starts out as just being an intern. He doesn't have kids. He's a single guy. I think he's dated over the course of the time period. Anyway, he complains a lot about women. I've included some of that, but very little of that in this presentation for you. But he is probably the most aggressive of the Nazis on these calls. He is the most overtly opinionated, shall we say. And he'll be the young guy whose voice you hear very shortly. I don't think he's the first. He might be the first person speaking in this clip. I'm not sure. But anyway, so this is our new guy. You won't be hearing Potato Smasher anymore. Unfortunately, we've heard from him in previous episodes before we talked about Full House. Anyway, this one is from episode 185.
Because of that, the cops
that's Rollo.
went in to stop it, unlike the George Floyd riots.
Yep.
And an anti-Semitism bill was proposed. So I don't think they're ever going to get it. Leftists don't get it. Those people are extremely stupid and they're crazy. These are people they're what? What did I just say?
Two things. One, some of those protesters get it, and not
you
all
think
of them.
You think they do? You think they do?
They have to.
I don't.
They have to.
No.
Okay. So there were protests happening, and despite the fact that nobody did anything to protesters during the George Floyd era, which is not true, but it is a mark of faith among these guys that nobody did anything to counteract violent lawlessness during the summer of 2020. It is something that they will never ever not believe. That is the earth is round, and no leftist served any jail time over George Floyd. Those are two things, and the earth is round thing is a little questionable for some of them.
I was going to say,
water is wet. Then whatever. Jews are evil. Anyway, so with that background, with that kind of knowing where that is, and they're literally having an argument about do the leftists, do these people protesting it on these on the campus of Columbia, etc. Do they know that they're really, because in their mind, if I'm an anti-Semite, if I'm a racist, and this will become very clear, if I'm a racist, I know that the real thing that I'm fighting is not Semitism, it's not Zionism, it's not the state of Israel, it's Jews. It's Jews as a race, that they have certain characteristics that I am opposed to. They are opposed to me and I'm opposed to them. That is the nature of, that is the fundamental fact about the world. That's what these people believe, right? And so in their mind, the question is, well, do these little wishy-washy leftist protesters know what I know, which is that the problem is Jews, or do they believe this nonsense thing about structural power and imperialism, et cetera, which is obvious nonsense. It's obvious nonsense that this is all about imperial power and plays on the world stage and, historical oppression, et cetera. So no. Clearly that can't be the answer. It's just that they're Jews, you see? And so you have to understand that to make any sense about where this conversation goes. So I'm going to hit play again.
Well, you wish they do. No. You wish they do.
I don't. Well, I haven't been there. I haven't been there. But
how many MAGA people have never come around to our ideas despite everything that's happening to them? Do you think J6 people are there? How many J6 people do you think got thrown in jail that are well, Trump's going to save me?
Of course, this was recorded before
they were all
Trump
let out.
we'll let them all out. Yes, exactly. So, significantly before. This is summer 2024. So I don't know. You have any commentary so far, or shall we keep going?
Only to point out that the single belief that was most common, this was actually established in a survey or I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was established empirically. The belief that was most commonly shared by people involved in the January 6th riots was belief in the Great Replacement, which
Yes.
I know isn't quite the same thing as the white genocide conspiracy theory. It's kind of like it's not just a watered down version. It is actually different in its actual terms, as you've often pointed out to me, but it is nonetheless, it is a far right anti-Semitic conspiracy
Yes,
theory.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It's they, this is not the place necessarily to go through that, but
No,
we've discussed it many times before. If people want to, I could easily do an episode on that. Believe me, I could do that extemporaneously at this point. The difference between that, but that was a very good note. I agree.
Fair enough, but awareness of Jewish power and malignant influence in the world is not a uniquely right wing or like even necessarily white thing.
No,
like,
it's a uniquely clear-minded thing. And these people, their brain it's filled with Xanax, pornography, and Big Mouth.
Okay.
What?
You know the reference? You know the Big Mouth reference?
I don't know what that is. No.
Big Mouth. I may still be running. I'm not sure. It's a Netflix show. I think created by Nick Kroll is involved. The show is actually it's kind of a metaphor for sex work. And it's a comedy show about these mystical beings who do engage in sex work. It's like representations of people's sexual desires. And there are a lot of jokes about like teenagers with jerking off into socks and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And
yeah.
so and a lot of the creators are themselves Jewish, as a lot of people who work in Hollywood are Jewish, And this was in this era, in this time period, this became just a one-word reference to the depravity that is Hollywood. Is that Big Mouth is this like thing, and it's like, oh, it's portraying underage sex, and it's just child pornography and all that sort of thing. So it's like this, it becomes this synecdoche for everything wrong in Hollywood, basically.
Okay, I got you.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was going to have to explain that until that particular second. I'm like, oh shit. Okay, here we go. Anyway.
These people aren't going to get it. Now, if you don't interrupt me, you'll hear the point that I'm going to make. It's the other people that are on the fence will see this. That's where you're going to see the most positive change.
Okay.
Because these college people, they live the most sheltered life. Everyone they're surrounded by either communist college professors or students that want to kiss up to
communist college professor.
yeah. The children of the elite who go to Columbia University are definitely steeped in Marxist principles.
Really, they're just indoctrinated into communism,
into Leninism. Yeah, absolutely. That's what's happening on these major universities. But it's like those kids, those college kids, they are unreachable, man. They are just indoctrinated with communism. Actually, they're indoctrinated with knowledge about the world because they're going to college and they're getting a really world-class education and they understand things about systematic oppression and imperialism, etc. Not all of them, but certainly the ones protesting. It's not because they hate Jews; it's because they actually know the truth and they oppose it correctly. For not your reasons.
They're being indoctrinated into far left ideology by the institution that they're protesting against because it supports a far right state. Okay.
Yes. It's like you don't realize you're really just against Jews. You just need to talk about Jews more. Anyway.
Yeah, you see, the trouble with that is no, they're not. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
The reason they don't realize that is because it's not true.
It's because
that would be why.
It's not because the Jews have put like a veil upon their eyes and they just can't see the guy with the big hook nose standing in the corner with the pulling the strings. It's very silly. But these people are absolutely 100% serious. This is a 100% serious conversation. You can't get the college kids; they're too far gone. You can get the people on the fence who maybe are anti-Semitic like us, but they're not like indoctrinated like these college kids. So maybe the college kids can. It's so silly. It's so stupid.
The communist college professors. So they live completely detached from reality But normal people see this and they're like, boy, things sure aren't going great today. And you see these people going, oh, that is Israel war crimes. And they're like, wait a minute. These guys they locked themselves in a library and all the cops came in. But my business got burned down by a bunch of blacks that were just breaking things and stealing stuff. And then the cops took a knee. Hold on. How come you?
Okay. I'm going to elucidate this. I think you get it, but I'm going to elucidate it for the audience. So that's okay. What he's saying there is that these college kids had consequences for protesting Columbia because Columbia is run by Jews. Whereas back in the George Floyd era, shopkeepers whose buildings were burned down by Antifa or BLM or whatever, the people who did those crimes did not suffer repercussions because the Jews who secretly run or overtly run the world didn't really care about those small business owners because they were white. Because there were white people who owned small businesses that were being destroyed. But they do care about the Jews in control of Columbia University. So that's why these college kids are getting the brunt of the state, whereas the BLM rioters, did not. That's the logic that you have. That's the tortured logic here, all right? Just to clarify that.
I see. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, now there's an anti-Semitism bill? Who's in charge here? Those are the people, because you get a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm a moderate, like though, and maybe they're gonna say like, well, I wish we had more workers' rights, but I also wish you would do something about immigration. Those are the people that I think you're gonna pick up. But if you think you're gonna make friends with a leftist, they don't have to know about Jewish power.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't. Those people, they just see white person, because I found a really funny tweet and it said that these people aren't anti-Jewish, they're anti-Israel because anyone can be Jewish.
He finds that the logic of the tweet is you're not anti-Semitic, you're anti-Israel because people can convert to Judaism. Judaism is a religion. But no, he says, no, Judaism is a race. Judaism is a fundamental fact about the way that people are. And people, either whether they practice Judaism, the religion, or not, people who are Jewish ethnically, by definition, act in ways that are Jewish. And those Jewish ways are actively opposed to our white ways, our Aryan ways. They are coming to subvert us, or coming to destroy us. And that's the logic. That's what these stupid college kids don't understand, is that the Jews are just going to act Jewishly. It's just a fundamental fact about it, So that's the logic there. Again, I hate to have to elucidate that. This is really disgusting stuff. But it's, you can't understand that unless you understand the background here. Then the way I started to understand it originally was I had to figure out what the fuck are these people talking about? What are the premises here? What do you have to believe in order to make this make sense? Oh, racism. That's the logic of racism. Yes, I get it now.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. And Rolo there can't understand. He doesn't understand that. He's like, because anybody can be Jewish, but no, not anybody can be Jewish. And that's what he's going to continue on here.
And that was someone that was defending Jews. I don't like the Israeli government, but
right,
anyone can be a Jewish.
The whole potential Jewish converts.
Well, they will often feature these. They will often feature these. We have Jews on our side. Yeah, we have Jews that are against what's going on over there and so forth.
Yeah, and there's plenty of Sam Harris's or Steven Spielberg.
I have no idea what the point he's trying to make with Sam Harris and Steven Spielberg. Like, Sam Harris is a defender. Like, Sam Harris, there has been virtually no person in the English-speaking world who has been more virulent against the people of Gaza than Sam Harris. Like, this is, Steven Spielberg is kind of, I looked it up, he's kind of wishy-washy on this stuff. Like, he's, I don't know. Like, certainly, he's just naming famous Jewish people. I mean, he's going to get to one that's kind of relevant here in a second, but it's like Sam Harris and Steven Spielberg. What logic are you reaching for here? Even I don't quite get that one. So,
he's assuming viewpoints that it seems obvious to him that they have. I expect.
Yeah, I would assume that Rollo has never like listened to any bit of what Sam Harris was having to say about this topic.
No,
which was we haven't bombed Gaza enough. Was kind of where Sam Harris was. Every single dead Gazan is on the heads of Hamas. Anything that Israel does is good as long as it is meant to destroy Hamas. That's the long and the short of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, this isn't a Sam Harris episode, but yeah, Rollo does not understand. Yeah, very educated young man. He knows all about the Jews, and so that's all you need to know. You don't need to know anything about what Sam Harris actually says and does, because all you need to know is he's one of those hook-nosed people. That's it. Period. This is so tiring. Anyway, this clip is about over, so let's finish it. All right.
Pick your celebrity Jew that they'll glob onto. Who is the one guy? The Chomsky, like Noam Chomsky.
Well, finally, you found one. You found one that might actually make your point. Look at that.
Yeah.
You hit one eventually. Just name famous Jewish people. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll always like pull these people out, but they do not think that there is a difference between a white and a Jew. And I think that is the core fundamental principle in understanding Jewish power, is knowing that they are a race that acts in their own interest.
Totally distinct.
And these people do not understand that.
Again, the reason that they don't understand it is that it's not true.
It's because, well, it turns out that people of Jewish ethnicity, of Jewish faith, actually do stand on both sides and on all sides of this issue. Well, they only do that to subvert the real ones. They're really all in favor of Israel. They're just pretending not to be, or they're just deluded, or what it's like.
What you don't understand is that Jews all think alike.
Yes.
I mean, people will tell you that it's not true, and they will bring out examples of Jews who disagree with what I think Jews believe, like this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy.
Like 30% of the population.
It holds true in every case except for all the exceptions.
Yeah, except for all the exceptions, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's just, but the idea that like Jews all act as like almost as one individual organism, you almost have to believe that for these guys. Like that is almost just cliche for the way these guys talk about it is.
It's almost like they're not really talking about the people out here in the real world we call Jewish, but are talking instead about some kind of mythical, monstrous globular alien monstrosity, like, some sort of corporate entity like the Borg that they've just fantasized in their own heads and assigned to Jewish people. Almost. Yeah, you could be confused for that. Anyway, okay. All right, that's the end of that clip. Guess what? We're going to be talking a lot more about Jews. Unfortunately. Oh yeah.
And I do want to make it clear, just for any new listeners, I don't believe a word. I don't think there's any unclarity here and anything unclear here. I do not believe a word of this. I'm explaining it so that you can understand it, so that you can know how nonsense this is and how bad this stuff is in places where you don't look. Like that's all I'm saying here. So we may have newer listeners who are not familiar with the way we do this content, but I just want to be absolutely clear.
I don't think anybody that's familiar with this show could be confused about where we stand, but these things do sometimes need to be repeated just for the sake of doing so, yeah.
Okay. We have actually 3 clips from episode 186, which is one episode after the one we just listened to. This one is very short. This one is about the 2-hour mark of episode 186. I'm just going to play it, and we'll... I decided to include all 3. This one is a little bit less essential, but it is more Rollo. You just get a little more Rollo here.
Politicians, both parties, with very few exceptions, are owned hook and sinker, bought and paid for agents of Jews in Israel. And I don't care about Jews are different. Some are Zionists, some are anti-Zionist. Some
don't
care. Yep.
Almost could have been just the tag to that last clip. It's just it almost could have been right there, just in that same. They talk about this shit incessantly. It's truly bizarre. That was almost my cold open until I found the other one. So just to let you know, I like the other one better, but that was almost the cold open. Now we get, and that one was Gebert, Sam, and Rollo at the end there. But this one is a lot more directly Rollo focused. Rollo is again the most outspoken one, and so he's the easiest to clip. But all these guys, even though Rollo says the things that are the most extreme, he's a friend of them. They all agree with this stuff. I mean, they disagree on tactics. They disagree on some of the like the fine details, but like this is all part of the same like political project. They're all working towards the same goal, and they're all like believing it's believing in the kind of fundamental way of achieving that goal. And so I don't want to, we're not letting any of the other guys off the hook. Rollo's just the easiest one to clip. So, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
They don't understand what Jews are. Jews to them, it's a type of, it's an older Christian religion where they're just as imperialist as all white people. And they think Israel is doing the bidding of white Republicans in America. If you think that,
I mean, no, actually, but I think it's a little more complicated than that, there,
that those people, you can find common ground. You have been listening to people that are terminally online that have never had any real interaction with them for at least 10 years.
Right.
These people are insane. They are so dangerous.
He's talking about you and me. He's talking about you and me here. You understand that, right? He's talking about people within the bubble of this kind of right-wing racistosphere, right? And he's slightly outside of it. He sees himself as like, no, I interact with communists. I interact with leftists and liberals. Those are all the same term for a person like Rollo.
Yeah,
right away.
Same thing.
It's all the same thing. Like Hillary Clinton and Noam Chomsky and Vladimir Lenin are practically, it's like one and the same person. It's very silly.
They are indistinguishable from BLM. They do all think it's the same thing. Would you go to a BLM riot and try to find common ground? Well, of course not. These are the exact same people, and they are holding up the exact same cause. Brown good, white bad. It's the same thing.
I think we should have an IDSG t-shirt. Brown good, white bad. Because that's certainly what I believe. That's certainly, it's good. This, I mean, I do not want to like call this guy out like individually. He's being really blunt about this. This is like a fundamental thing that like all of these like white nationalist types in these internet spaces believe about liberals, about leftists, about, anybody that's like left of center. It's basically that if a white person did it in the past or is doing it in the present, it's bad and it must be stopped. Anything that a brown person does is automatically valorous and great, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how they see the world. They just see it through that lens. Yeah.
This is the logic of a child having a tantrum. This is what children do. If you have, like two brothers, right? Two little kids and they're brothers. And one of them does something. He wants a cookie and he's not supposed to have it and he steals it. And you catch him doing it and you punish him. He has a tantrum and he screams, "You always punish me. Everything I do is always wrong and you let him get away with stuff." That's exactly what this is. It's just transposed onto this mythical hallucinatory
this imaginary geopolitics. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Brown good, white bad. I don't know. I heard that originally. I'm like, all right, that's going in the show. Yep, exactly. I found my clip. All right, moving on. This is the same episode. It's 7 minutes later. They're just chatting at this point. This is just dead. It's just idle chit chat. They record late in the evenings, and they just you're able to open a beer, and he records in his backyard. He has this little outdoor gazebo or whatever, and he'll grab a middle like the most disgusting like mackerel beer. Drink what you like, but still, I just one of those things is like you're gonna grab a Miller Lite, like that's your beer of choice, and you're supposed to be a man of like acumen and good taste. Good on you, Aryan race. In
the middle of all this, Daniel's inner beer nerd can't help but come out and poke its head out.
I mean, I will give Sam some credit. He lives near Three Floyds in northern Indiana, and he praises their beers quite regularly. And so Sam has good beer taste. Three Floyds has gone downhill in the last 10 years, but they used to be a world class brewery. So Sam, your politics are disgusting. I agree with you on beer. You're good. Okay, but anyway, the things that I know about these people, it's just like I think I know what every single person who drinks in the alt-right, I think I know their drink of choice. I didn't even think about that until just now. I really do. I've heard, oh God, okay, that could be an episode.
Drinks of the far right, yeah.
He no longer lives in DC and Virginia. He was an up-and-comer for a while. When he got shit canned, when they found out he was a Nazi, he moved to somewhere in West Virginia. I think he has been doxxed, but I don't know the location. That's not what I'm here to discuss, but he is somewhere in West Virginia. And he has like some land out there. So he's going to the local Walmart and buying some stuff and noticing there are brown people in the Walmart and they behave in certain ways.
Yeah, I was checking out a Walmart today, overwhelmingly white area. Yeah, you still see some diversity dripping in here or there, strange faces, Spanish language, obese, not BMI obese, not like spilling out of her shorts, but fat and like all the stretchy stuff, probably half Indio, half Spanish, with a legitimately cute, well-behaved girl in the cart. And she's got...
And he has to call out, oh, the little girl, like she's a sweet little girl. She's just a little girl. I mean, she's mixed race. She's disgusting. But I mean, she was admittedly cute because this is the dad podcast and they just love little children. It's like, it's like you're literally talking about this woman, this girl's mother as this like disgusting half breed, this half human. And then like, oh, but the little girl, she was cute. Yeah, I don't know. The way these people compartmentalize is just, it's remarkable, Like,
that is such a cliche. That is such a cliche, though. I mean, that's in Mississippi Burning. There's a bit where the Brad Dourif character does that in that movie.
I've tried to block as much of that movie out of my mind as possible. I believe you.
Her gigantic iPhone Max on the like self-checkout counter, speaking very loudly in Spanish. Rah, 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 and
I just love the racist way that these guys describe Spanish. It's just the rah, rah, rah. That's all you got out of that. Rah, rah, rah.
Looking at the like Walmart people who like, police the self-checkout line and they're like rolling their eyes and they want to like chimp out. And then...
Oh, chimp out there. That is a classic alt-right slur. It's one of those, it's that when black people get mad, they don't take their anger out in like constructive ways. They just destroy things. That's what chimp out means in that context. Because of course, black people, it normally meant black people, but I think it's extended to people who aren't white, but it was definitely originally an African-American thing or a, black people thing because they are ultimately chimpanzees. That's where the term comes from. All sorts of racist artwork that I saw back in the 2015, 2016, 2017 era to exactly that veil, but just describing the term for those who might not know it.
She checks out and she leaves the scanner like right on the table, and the daughter says, mama, and she's pointing to it, and then the mom like sees, oh, I left the scanner, the handheld. Okay, I'm gonna admit to you at this point, I haven't shopped at a Walmart in a while. I have local stores that I shop from. It's not that I'm filling myself above Walmart, but I actually worked for a Walmart for a while back in '99. So I don't know what sin this woman is supposed to have committed. Is it that she didn't put the little handheld scanner thing in its little cradle and she just left it?
Sounds like it.
Like that's the great sin that we're elucidating for a minute and a half on this prominent podcast. Yeah. Like that's the thing.
From this, we can deduce ontological truths about the entirety of human history as well. Yeah.
I mean, she's overweight. She speaks Spanish. She's mixed race. Not any of them are white, right? Clearly. She's got a cute little kid, so she's reproducing. And that kid's going to grow up to be just like her mom. And she's committing minor social faux pas. And the people working at the Walmart, who are mostly, presumably not white in this story because he used the racist term, are somehow beholden to this woman. That's the picture he's trying to paint, right?
Scanner on the thing, and she just waves it off. She is like, it's not, I forget what she said, nada.
You notice he was trying to go right for that racist Spanish there. And he stopped himself. I don't know why he stopped himself. I think he just thought it was too annoying. Like it's too obvious to do that, to do that kind of thing. When we do Megyn Kelly, we're going to talk about the way that she uses her racist Spanish accent. We will definitely be doing that. But not here. Gerbert, one step better than Megyn Kelly. Can you believe it? Just in that moment. Of course he's worse, but
doesn't matter. But she was just like her daughter pointed out that her mother had just committed a minor offense or left the scanner on the thing, and the mom was just like, yeah, fuck that, and continued on with her.
He bleeped the word fuck there. He bleeped.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to leave in anything offensive, would you?
They bleep the swear words, except for one, which they allow to stand. We're going to figure out what that one is shortly. Okay.
Loud blabbering in Pig Latin, and
in Pig Latin, it's Spanish. It's Spanish. It's the language is thousands of years old. I mean, like it's a derivative of Latin. It's like it doesn't get more European than fucking Spanish. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Ixnay on the acism ray.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just so. Of course, they see like the Castilians of Spain as being like a higher people than these mixed race, like half breeds of Central and South America. You know, those are two entirely different kinds of people. You know, but still, it's like, you know, like I don't know. It's just, I find it remarkable. Pig Latin or whatever. She speaks Spanish. You know she's speaking Spanish. You accidentally almost spoke a little Spanish yourself. You probably speak a little bit of it because you're an American. You probably know a few sentences of Spanish.
It's just like, goddamn, if that's not a little microcosm of everything that's happened to this country over the past 70 years.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you know, there's poorly behaved white people too, but like there are people.
Percentage is way different.
Oh, sure. And
in a majority white country, perpetrators are going to be white.
So what the fuck are we even talking about? I mean, nothing happened. Perpetrators of what?
Perpetrators
nothing
of
happened.
Like, slightly non-social behavior. Slightly is like, you know, like
nothing happened in that. Look, I used to work in a supermarket. People would take their trolleys and leave them in the car park. It's just something people do. They're busy. They've got to be somewhere. They've got 14 things to do. They've got a kid that they've got to look after.
Especially a small, adorable young child who apparently even Gilbert agrees needed his mom's attention or needed her mom's attention. Right? I mean, you know, come on, this is
literally nothing happened in that. A woman went shopping. That's your story. Yes.
And I just love this thing of like, you know, when Sam comes in there, it's like, yeah, but the percentages are way different. It's like, you know what? Even if you said like this is slightly non-social behavior, that woman is frazzled, she's got a lot to do, she's overweight, you know what causes all those problems? You know what's a root indicator? It's poverty. And poverty, despite what these people believe, does not come about because your race is just fundamentally bad at making money. It comes about because poverty is systemic and structural, you know? And if we did have an all-white country, as these people want, then you would be complaining about the white trash doing the exact same fucking thing. I promise.
Look, I don't feel comfortable speculating about this poor woman in specific.
No.
If she was,
I'm assuming all the things that he said were true. We're assuming that this is a true story.
Exactly. It's all filtered through his perceptions, which are clearly not even beginning to be anywhere near trustworthy. But look, if this woman was half Indio or whatever you want to put it, you know, and she has problems or whatever because she lives in poverty, you can trace all of that, literally her existence as that ethnicity. And the fact that people of that extraction still live disproportionately in poverty, you can trace all of that right back to European imperialism in the quote-unquote New World. All of it.
No, Jack, you're wrong. It's just you and I, we have the wool. The Jews have fooled us. It's just Jews. It's just, I don't know. It gets so. I hate even doing this, but then, you know, like...
The Jews famously did really well in Spain at the time of the empire.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Well, that was one of the 109. Don't you understand? You know, that was one of the good times. Oh my God. Okay, so we're off of that episode now. We're on to something a little bit. Oh God, even more convoluted. Because this is a response. A lot of what they do is they do like infighting. They do like they discuss like movement infighting a lot. And kind of different ways that people are talking about issues. And keep in mind, so we're going to be. This is Gilbert kind of talking about certain things that Mike Enoch over at The Right Stuff had been doing at the time. So this is again mid 2024, and ever since the atrocities in Gaza, Enoch has been on a like, he is 100% all, you know, the Jews are going to get genocide. You know, it's all one message all the time. You know, and not in the like structural way that you and I would believe it, but because they are Jews, they are just want to massacre the Palestinians, and so he has put himself on the side of the Palestinians. He is like, no, I support Palestine because it fucks the Jews. That's as far as it goes for him. And so he's propagandizing to that effect in like white nationalist spaces where white nationalists, a lot of them don't like Palestinians because they're not white, you know, or because they're perceived as being not white. White is a social good, et cetera. But yeah, anyway, Enoch is like anything that hurts Jews is good. The other guys are like, oh, no, not so fast. Not so fast. We want to hurt the Jews, but I'm not aligning with no brown person, in order to do it, And so this is, that's the background you need for this next.
When Fashcroft said, like, oh, what about calling white people?
Fashcroft is one of the people in the TRS forums. He's a fairly prominent person, but he's not a podcaster. So I don't think he runs a podcast anyway.
People, whiteoids. Mike goes, that was a joke.
Whiteoids is a thing, and whiteoids and rightoids and Christoids, etc. These are terms that TRS uses to describe the kind of grug members of like MAGA world who don't understand that the Jews are in charge of everything, who are support, white nationalism or support, Christo-fascism, but they're not like Jew focused enough because they don't really see the reality that this is the Jews. And keep in mind that Rollo and these guys believe everything that Mike believes, or everything that Enoch believes about the Jews. Are a little more tactical about who they're going to support and who they're not.
No. If I say Coach is a faggot, you might say, okay, well, that was a joke. But if I say it on my show every time, like, wow, Coach said this, Coach is such a faggot. At a certain point, you're like, I don't think he's joking. I think he genuinely doesn't like me. So when you call white people whiteoids and Christoids, and then he's just saying like, yeah, I mean, we should just support them. That's not what you're saying. You're telling people that if they're not pro-Palestinian up front, they are pro-Israel. That is crap. Yeah. That is bullshit. That is dishonest crap, and you know it. You can be anti-both. It's not like one or the other. Yeah. Like, yeah, okay, I like that my enemy is being bogged down with something else, but that doesn't mean I have to like these people that hold up a flag and beat an old white guy to death. Shut up.
Yeah, well.
So, hey, there are a couple of slurs there. I think Jack's going to bleep those out for us. Those were the 6-letter F word. That is not the swear word that I was referring to that they explicitly allow in the podcast. Although that one does also have 2 G's. Can you guess what it is yet?
I'm starting to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. You might get the inkling of where I'm going here. Yeah.
I highly doubt that Mike Enoch loves the Palestinians.
No. He is very well known. If you read between the lines, and even the things that like people have seen, even things that like a Jesse Dunstan, Sven on TRS. If you pay attention to these guys, a lot of this stuff is a calculated pose. He takes rhetorical positions specifically to move people in his direction, positions that he does not himself hold. That's something that happens all the time. That was part of the reason that the National Justice Party collapsed, is because Enoch was trying to hold to a certain ideological purity, and he was trying to force people into, as a good fascist would, he's trying to make people, push the propaganda that he wants to push because he's the big guy on top. It turns out these fascists really don't like fascism when they're the ones on top. It's continuing.
Throughout that thing, Mike did make little points that I thought were okay, but it misses the main point. Let's say that government over there in Israel was so destabilized by Iran bombing it and other neighboring countries sending soldiers over the border, and they did lose control over there. Maybe that's like a 5% possibility of what's going 10. On.
Yeah.
Or 10. Yeah. But 90%. But let's just say it is a small 10% possibility.
Sure.
How do you think the Jews in this country will react to people like us if they lose control of the command and control on the ground of that country?
So Sam is going like, no, Mike's got it all wrong. I mean, if the Palestinians take control of Israel, the Jews over here are just going to take it out on us. So what good is it to me if the Palestinians, take control? A 10% probability that the Palestinians are just going to win this war, or the Iranians are going to come in, or whatever destabilizing force they're believing. There's probably like a convoluted, he said and she said backstory that's good. Well, never she said. It's always a he said. There are no women. There are no women in Nazi land. We'll get there. I promise you.
It is going to be like times 100. Okay, they are going to become so, anyone, just like in England, you put a little Facebook post with something that disagrees, they'll be hunting you down. So in no way does them losing control there amount to something good here, nor does, and if the Palestinians are destroyed, they just want to send them here. So it's like a lose for us, whatever's going to happen there.
Yeah. They're just going to export the Palestinians, and they're just gross people. Like, we can't support those people. They're just as gross as the Jews, just less in charge.
We are 17 levels deep in utter delusion at this point.
Yes.
But it amounts to, do you realize that barring a very, very lucky eventuality, both sets of these people are just going to blatantly continue existing? That's unacceptable.
Yes, well, that's where you get the worldwide global extermination. That was the Gio de Lorey thing, that we kind of started this podcast with on some level.
Yeah.
Gio de Lorey was one of the original co-hosts of Full House. He isn't a dad, but he was talking about being an uncle and all that sort of thing. And I just didn't have it in me to go through Gio de Lorey clips for this. We'll do some more Gio de Lorey sometime, but not today. All right, we're kind of off that particular topic. We're kind of exploring various things that Gerber has said over the course of the years. This is what time he met Tim Pool, and oh,
I don't know who to feel sorrier for.
This is interesting. I think this is interesting. This would have been probably in like 2015, somewhere in that era. It would have been when he says it's when Poole was working for Vice, so maybe even earlier than that. But this would have been like when Gerber was an up and comer in the State Department. He would have like hobnobbed with journalists, etc. He would have had occasion to sit down and talk to Tim Pool. He does say it's all the Jews. So this would have been later in Gerbert's life, at least 2015, when he started to radicalize. At least self-defense, he started to radicalize at that point. So, and I kind of believe that. I think that's probably true. Anyway, this is his story. We may dive in or we may not. So
I don't think this is unfair or ungentlemanly, but I met Tim Pool at a thing where we were able to have a civil, sober conversation. And I sat up straight because he is somebody. Even, I originally didn't like him because he was a Vice journalist with the stupid beanie. And then I sort
pro
of
skateboarder.
I don't care about that at all.
He got a little roll up. He's a pro skateboarder. That's a cool thing, right? God.
But he was.
Found him more interesting as somebody who maybe was a principled liberal, and we've seen this, of course.
Jesus Christ. That might be the stupidest thing I've heard so far.
that is true. Although Tim Pool of that time was still like really trying to pull that grift real hard,
I was going to say this is early days.
This is early days. He was a little bit more respectable in these days. So this is kind of right around the time he started hanging around with like Richard Spencer and shit. Actually, not like Millennial Matt, not all those guys. Anyway,
it was moving right in response to insanities, and at a certain, I forget what we were talking about specifically, but and I was like, and you know why that is, of course, right? He's like, no, I don't. Why? I was like, and it was because it's the Jews. That's a terrible paraphrase, and he sort of like chuckled, and then that was basically the end of the conversation, and he moved on. I was a little bit more savvy about that. There was more to it than that, but as soon as I said that J word, it basically that was the
MK Ultra,
and he didn't act like
trigger word. Yeah,
but I think he knew, and I think he was like, okay, I prefer not to engage with one of the guys with the sunglasses from They Live. Honestly, I think he was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
Again with the 80s movie reference, he's gotta love it. He is consistent on that. What he's trying to lay down is like, well, Tim Pool knows about the Jews, but he's feeding from the teat. He's working in media and he knows what you can't talk about.
Yeah,
I think Tim Pool is probably interested. I mean, it's hard to know what Tim Pool actually believes. I know what he thinks will make him money. And that is to being this like reactionary dipshit who always shits on the left, who always pretends the right is not as far right as it is, pretends to be a very like a disaffected liberal, and who never ever says a single word about Jews. Knows that that's the thing that's gonna you say Jews in certain tones of voice, people's ears perk up and he gets your shit canceled. He can be as racist as he wants to be about other types of people, but he can't talk about Jews. It's
Hey. Since we're doing 80s movies references, if there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, but that's a black man saying that. I don't know that Coach Finstock would be very favor that. Yeah, God, Ghostbusters, man. I'm now trying to think of what the Nazis would think about Ghostbusters. Let's not go there. We got all right. We're right into the home stretch. I hope. All right, this would be Sam talking about one of his favorite holidays. This was just from a few weeks ago. This is from episode 201. It was from partly it was from last November, so a year ago. So they've only done like a handful of episodes in the last year. Not that I have any way to complain, but they definitely decreased their production, which makes it easier for me. I just listen to it every month instead of every week. But this is Sam talking about how he gets pleasure from Thanksgiving. Still, it's still a favorite thing. He likes to watch the parades. You see.
And even though it was raining, I actually enjoyed it. And I got to say, the marching bands coming by, they were all white. There were the New York City parade was whiter, and it was actually better than the Chicago parade, which I usually would say it the opposite way. But because what is missing is that in the New York parade, they stop in front of the review stand, and they have some kind of like Broadway number where they lip sync to some nigger song or whatever, and
there it is,
not bleeped.
But the Chicago one, it was like I said, I would rather see even though on the South Side it's all nigger high schools.
Not bleeped twice. Two more times right there. Not bleeped.
The original, not bleeped in the original. People hearing
you'll hear the bleeped version, but Jack is hearing the real one. So I'm verifying, Jack. I am playing the real one, right?
Listeners, the bleeps you are hearing were added by me, not by them.
With their nigger bands, fine, but I would rather see that than all these Chinese groups. I don't understand what the connection is. Can't we have like some local thing?
Can't discriminate if they want to put their little stupid church or temple on a float. But you got to say yes. Yeah,
it's like, well, the black people are one thing. I can keep up the Chinese. Why are the Chinese celebrating Thanksgiving? It's like,
this is such old fart shit.
Yeah, that is real. I mean, Sam really gives that old fart vibes. He really gives old fart vibes like a lot.
Oh, I went down the shop and talked to this bloke behind the counter, black fella. And I came out again and I was talking to this traffic warden, Chinese fella. It's such old fart crap.
I think that one was from the subcontinent or something. I couldn't tell. So that was just a little taste.
Well, I was sort of instinctively, I was starting to do an impression of one of my grandfathers, but then I realized if I was going to make it authentic, I was going to have to say things I didn't want to say.
Yeah, that's probably true. I could. I think you and I both have similar family members that we could probably imitate. But that was just a little moment, just Sam talking about the joys of Thanksgiving. And it's just, and again, it's like it's just like horrifying racism. This is like this baked into the cake. It's just the strychnine is baked into this but the cake itself, it looks lovely from the outside. It's like, oh, we should talk about these like heartwarming traditions of like the parades, and even if the parade's got some more brown skin, then maybe I like it, but still, like I can still get some joy out of it. And then he just drops it over, like, but the Chinese, one of the Chinese, it's like, oh my god.
So, we've had only two. I mean, from what you've played me, we've had two basic types of discussion. One of them is just internal to the movement, sort of arguing, which amounts to somebody else on another podcast wasn't as racist as I think they should have been, and
they were racist in the wrong way. That's the other thing.
They were racist, yeah. And the other type is just, I went out into the world and did some normal things in the street, or things happened in the world, and there were people involved who weren't white, and they were there existing at me. That seems to be the only content here.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of it. Yeah, and I did again. There's a lot of the handyman stuff, or there's a lot of that kind of stuff too. But it's like, again, largely unobjective. Just I don't know. I'm trying to give you a sense of like what how these people talk to each other, what the content of this. Like, so much of it is like you have to be deep into this. Like, you have to believe as they do to even begin to approach this podcast. Because if you just heard this as a normal person, as like a person down the street, even MAGA Republican, this is internal arguments. This is deep cut material. That's kind of what I'm getting to. But they pitch it as if like, well, we're just a bunch of dads doing dad stuff, and we just have to be racist about it, But no, they are deeply invested in this, like in this fundamentally weird political project. Anyway, that's what I'm trying to demonstrate to you. Anyway, next clip. This is actually a little bit of a promo for another thing I did. I appeared on Half the Answer talking about the Tucker Carlson Nick Fuentes interview. That episode has not been released yet. I don't know if it will be released before this one is, but it was a fun conversation. I'm looking forward to listening to it. We will post a link to it. And anyway, that was a fun conversation. That's part of the reason we didn't do it over here was because I did it over there. And I don't know that there's enough material for me to cover. Anyway, if people want to hear more, then I can do it. But I want you to listen to the Have the Answer episode first. Anyway, this is Gerbert, Coach Finstock. His opinion of this interview.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I unleashed about a 2-minute. I never leave voicemails in the group chat, but I was driving. I was able to.
He listened to the Tucker Carlson Nick Fuentes conversation, and he was so mad about it. He like unloaded in the group chat in a voicemail. That's
concentrate and listen carefully from the beginning straight through to the end. And I just let off like a lot of F-bombs and like this was total trash on both ends. Overall, I thought that Tucker sounded more like an agent of the state, like a deliberate de-radicalization agent or officer than I had heard.
Did you listen or watch any of that Tucker Carlson Nick Fuentes interview, Jack?
No.
The bulk of it is Nick Fuentes not quite going quite as anti-Semitic as I think he would normally like in his space. And then Tucker Carlson doing something like, well, yeah, but you don't hate all Jews, right? I mean, you're like, and certainly, you can be anti-Israel and not anti-Semitic. It's 2 hours of that. That's effectively what that conversation was. The goal was to try out Nick Fuentes as being the new Charlie Kirk. I don't think that's going to happen, but the goal was to take some of Nick Fuentes' audience and to bring him into the fold a little bit, see if he's ready for prime time. If he can take his 5 million follower account over on Rumble and Cozy TV, which is enormous. That's as big as any of these guys have. Can he take that audience and can it be put into more like the MAGA right style, more the traditional media style? So it's a tryout. It's Tucker Carlson. Absolutely. He's throwing balls right over the plate. He's giving them easy answers. He no challenging questions whatsoever. This is the most comfy interview I can imagine having with Nick Fuentes. It is just without actively agreeing with every single one. He is trying to soften up the rough edges of Nick Fuentes. That's the goal of this thing. That's what this interview was. That's the content. And Gerbert is so spitting mad at this.
Heard in a long time. And I thought that Nick barely lifted a finger to push the envelope in terms of the kind of content that's been discussed on Tucker. Now, in terms of the copes, I heard people say, you should.
And Nick Fuentes is being actively anti-Semitic, and it's not even like pushing Tucker to be more anti-Semitic, but he is definitely being anti-Semitic, but he's definitely, Tucker would say, but it's not all Jewish, but there is something kind of Jewish about that, right? It was kind of that kind of conversation. Just notice the numbers that like Jewish people by and large support these kinds of things that support this genocide in Gaza, etc. He sounds like the whole point is he comes across as like rational center right kind of rational guy who's just talking about observable realities that we see in the world about the Jews. That's but he's not hardcore enough for these open anti-Semites. He's not openly anti-Semitic enough. But then he's going to talk about like possible objections to what he did. So why am I angry? Well, these are some objections. We're going to be reasonable. Let's just see.
Just be glad that Tucker had Nick Fuentes on. That in and of itself is a victory. To which I said, if I wanted to,
it is a victory for white nationalism. For Nick Fuentes to be further mainstreamed, that is a victory for them. That is objectively a victory. Yes.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah.
Two grown men just barely talk about Jewish influence in American foreign policy. Like that's nothing today. I'm not impressed by that, even if Tucker has a massive audience, right? Jeffrey.
See, this is normally like Mike Enoch's road is to be like, no, you're not being anti-Semitic enough. Be more anti-Semitic. Be openly anti-Semitic. You're either openly anti-Semitic or you're not. Gerbert is usually much more like kind of like I'm willing to let people kind of go as far as they're willing to go as long as they're moving in the right direction. So this must have really pissed him off. I mean, this must be a legitimate pissy moment for him. He's not playing politics here as much as he normally does.
Sachs went harder on not really the JQ, but the IQ at least.
Not the Jewish question, the Israel question, just in case, that needed elucidating.
People said, well, you see, Nick he like deliberately tempered himself there. There's no reason to go Jew on Tucker and alienate the audience. He's drawing them into his show, which is where he goes really hard. And I said, okay, fair enough. And, I haven't been critical of Nick in public or in private really for the past year or two, because I thought, if he's talking about race and Jewish power regularly, making people laugh, mocking the insanity of which Jewish Power in America is calling Barry Weiss a spy and all that stuff. I was like, good on him. Might not be my cup of tea. He's been a worm for longer than he's been an Aryan soldier, right? But he's getting older, he's maturing or whatever.
The response of these guys to Nick Fuentes is sometimes just bizarre. It's just like he's either a wishy-washy little worm, or he's like hanging out with his gay kid, or he's got too many Jews around him, or he's too milk toast, or he's not going hard enough. It's like it's like they don't understand Nick Fuentes' fundamental project is to make their form of white nationalism more palatable by standing off the roughest of edges without ever changing the message. He never really pushes back on the message. Like, well, no, but the Jews are a problem, But I have some Jewish friends. I'm not anti-Semitic, but the Jews are a problem. I mean, it's almost literally what he said in that Tucker Carlson interview, in almost that many words.
He's coming. Nick Fuentes is coming at the same thing as them, but from a different aesthetic angle because he's aiming at a different audience.
Yes,
and they clearly just fundamentally do not get it.
And he is enormously successful. He is much more successful than they are at this.
Much
just
more,
to be clear,
yeah. Well, clearly he's penetrated the mainstream. He's injected himself into the mainstream.
He has made himself big enough that Tucker Carlson can't ignore him, that Candace Owens can't ignore him, that Megyn Kelly can't ignore him, that Tim Pool cannot ignore him. And he's working in these online spaces, and it's just a fundamental thing. Mike Enoch can be utterly ignored by all of these people because he's an open he's an open Nazi, he's an open all of these things. Although there was a time in 2016, 2017, they were trying to bring those guys into the pack.
There was a moment. We've
talked about that previously. I don't know. That might be a topic worth revisiting. Some of that history. I think that would be interesting. But yeah, so that was from the most recent episode. I just wanted to share. That is from the episode that aired 8 days ago or something. So that's where they are right now. That is a current study. That is a current episode. All right. I told you we were going to finish with more fucking. Didn't I tell you we were going to end it with?
You did promise, and I'm holding you to it.
I have it here. This is from one of the things that these guys have always kind of prided themselves on, or one of the things that I think Gerbert has prided himself on, is just kind of being a match, but kind of he meets people where they are within the movement and kind of brings everybody in. Yeah, we mentioned a Handsome Truth in the last episode, and his wanted to bring get the Nazi guy out of jail. They have appeared. He and Sam have appeared on ongoing MTV on the explicitly we're just going to be rock on tours for anti-Semitism and racism. They've had political people like Thomas Sowell from Australia, and they had various people who are movement leaders that have appeared on the show. And during the Science v. Kessler lawsuit and during Cantwell's time in prison, well, during that period, but then also during his trial for the assaults that he committed and for the threats he made, and during his time in prison, and then when he got out, he maintained a positive relationship with Chris Cantwell. Discussed in a previous episode how that ended when Chris Cantwell revealed the mind-blowing amount of gay sex he has had over the course of his life, and the audiobook he produced telling it, I'm very proud of this audiobook that I have produced that talks about all the gay sex I've had in my life. Here, Mr. Famous Nazi, don't you think this is the greatest thing I've ever produced? Yeah, Chris, don't talk to me anymore. That's the thing. That's the thing that broke the bridge on that. But they were close enough with Cantwell that Cantwell was always doing his paywall material, so making an explicit business decision to have paywall content that people can come and pay for, and they get premium content, et cetera, and started up this network of, it ended up being a network of two, and it was Chris's stuff at Surreal Politiques, and then the Full House ended up doing one main episode, one mainline episode, one numbered episode, and then one kind of cut for time bonus bits, 20 minutes or something, behind Chris Cantwell's paywall, or behind kind of the group paywall. It was supposed to be like a cross membership deal sort of thing. It was the same thing he was trying to do back in 2017, but fewer people involved, because nobody wants to work with Chris Cantwell. Before they had found out about all the mind-blowing gay sex.
Even before his manuscript dropped.
Yes. And this one is the one they put 30 minutes of it for free, so you listen to the first 30 minutes, but then the rest was not. And this one is the one they called the sex show, or the SS. It was stylized even in some versions with the SS bolts, the sex show instead of the. So what I have not told you about Sam is an old man. He's a racist old man in the suburbs of Chicago. He is an old school racist with the screwdriver t-shirts. And this is a man who desperately loves to fuck. He is the horniest old man. I am a horny old man. This man puts me, I have I said I'm a sex geek. I've known many sex geeks. I've known horny people in my life. This is among the horniest men I've ever seen in my life. I think he does like tantric sex. He does all kinds of hey, that's your thing. I have no problem with him doing tantric sex. I have no problem with him loving to fuck his wife. I wish he wouldn't be a Nazi about it, but this makes everybody around him deeply, deeply uncomfortable because they don't want to talk about the same thing. On the sex show, they give advice about sex. It's like Sam comes in there, Coach Gerbert comes in there, and they have a couple of the guys. They have this guy from a show called The Godcast, who's like a Christian minister, is like a pastor, married his wife when they were both virgin, this sort of thing. And then a couple of the people from various shows to come on and you're like married dads and you're a little bit older and you can talk, the genuine problems you have in a marriage of how do you keep the spice alive? How do you keep, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And on some level it is, again, it's fairly unobjectionable material. I mean, it's center right or right wing. I mean, it's, but it's, a lot of it sounds like just ordinary, dads giving dads advice, which is the same kind of conceit of the entire show, really. But then it's twisted through this Nazi ideology that turns it all into fucking poison. And that's where we're going to end our show today. We're going to talk about semen. We're going to talk semen and Nazi semen. That's what we're going to be talking about. It's not technically, well, there is a little bit of semen here. Anyway, are you ready? Are you ready, Jack? You didn't know I was going here, but I knew I was going here. Audience, you have a chance to tune out. Jack is stuck with me to the end of this. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Remember that there's upward of 50% or whatever of our audience are single. No.
And this is right after there's been a long conversation about the need to, how do you find a good woman if you're like a young guy, and the importance of marrying a virgin and being a virgin when you get married and only really having that one, sexual, and did not have that history. He went to a fancy grad school. He said he's a cosmopolitan. He's a rootless cosmopolitan, because he's one of those guys. And so he's pushing back a little bit here. He's like, yeah, I agree that that's the ideal, but well, let's let him talk.
Men who are neither married nor have kids. And I'm thinking of how many of them out there are either undersexed or completely unsexed. They've never done it. And to give them the advice to go try to find that right woman and save yourself for marriage. Of course, there's the issue of finding a virgin out there, which is difficult enough. But good God, am I crazy here to be like, no, I want those guys to go out there and sow their wild oats for a little bit.
Yes, you are crazy.
Well, I mean, because they're Nazis,
yeah.
And of course, these guys are always like, no, that is not the pure ideal. This is not, you're not making white babies for the white race. Okay, wait for Sam's response. You got to love this.
Then you have to use Jewish birth control.
Ding, ding, ding. Because Sam believes, because he has a dozen kids or whatever, and he believes you just knock up your wife over and over again, and you just fuck her in between all those other times. And you don't use birth control because that's not the tool. It's the tool of the Jews. The Jews gave you birth control because they want you to not reproduce, because they want you to. It's all white genocide. It's white genocide all the way down. I love it. I love it. I mean, I guarantee you this man has used a dildo on his wife. I mean, he has all sorts of sex toys, that's not the Jews ruling this, it's just anything that doesn't lead to immediately to procreation or to the, God, it's
yeah. Auschwitz wasn't a death camp, but condoms existing is the white race being genocided.
Exactly.
Well, hold on. Here's another angle to consider in that. When you're going out and you're banging other girls.
Okay. Here's where I reveal to you that Rollo is both a deeply anti-Semitic man, and he loathes women to the bottom of his core. Every word this man I've ever heard this man say about the fairer sex is the most vile, contemptible shit you've ever heard in your life. Roosh Fee would look at this guy and go, really? Really? Come on, man.
Calm down. These are people we're talking about.
That's somebody's daughter. Come on.
Girls don't process sex the same way that men do. They don't just go okay, one and done. That's fine. Let's move on. So every girl that guys are sleeping with and then moving on, that's another woman that's going further away from having her own committed marriage.
Yeah, they can't pair.
You see, once a woman gets a dick in her, it just messes with her brain a little bit. She's just the little lady brains. They just can't really cope with the idea. They want to pair bond, and if they're not pair bonding with the first guy they fuck, then they just become damaged goods. You see, it's it's this belief is pervasive in our society. Men can just sleep around because we just need to come, and we can just use a cock sleeve all we want and just fulfill our desires, and we don't have an emotional connection. But women, there's just so much daintier, the social delicate. I'm pretty sure, dude, you're probably pretty bad in bed because I just listened to you talk and I think you're pretty bad in bed. Also, I know for a fact there are women who really just need to get laid tonight and don't really care about you the next day. I know for a fact that that's true. And maybe if you learned a thing or two about how to behave yourself in the bedroom, you might have the pleasure of learning that for yourself as well.
or just how to behave yourself generally, really.
True. Maybe not be a Nazi is kind of the first.
Yeah.
I'm not even going that far. I'm like, maybe learn to perform cunnilingus. Just maybe.
Well, I think you're way off into outer space at this point. Asking this guy to learn how to behave in the bedroom is already too much. I think can we start with asking him to learn how to behave around microphones? That would be a good start.
Yes, that would be a good start. Yes. Stop doing your Nazi podcast. That is a step in the right direction, my friend. Not me. He's not my friend. Anyway.
Things at some point.
So you have two things. You are encouraging white men to go make women less likely to pair bond and form families, or you're encouraging white men to go have sex with non-whites, which also comes with the risk of making non-white babies.
Well, I certainly wasn't encouraging that, but
I certainly wasn't encouraging that.
Heaven forfend.
Oh God. I wasn't trying to imply that maybe mixed race people should be created. It's like the more the white women fuck white guys and the more that they aren't getting fulfilled relationship wise because of their little lady brains, that's what they need. They're just going to go seek out, relationships with the subhumans, and they might create more mixed breeds, And it's just like, that's the thing we have to worry about. Again, it's twisted through this ideology. It's twisted through this set of belief structures. And it's just like, it can't just be like, yeah, we encourage a purity culture, but we understand that young people are going to bump uglies. They're going to enjoy it. It's going to be a good experience. But, we also, we encourage them to come back in the fold later. That is a standard, conservative position on this topic. That is they twisted into something deeply, deeply fucked up.
No, I know you weren't, but I'm just saying that's the thing that comes with that. So I had to get after a normie friend of mine the other day because this is a guy who's top dog in his gym and he's in his late 40s and he has kids but he's in a
sounds fine so far. He's in his late 40s. He's a gym bro. He's got some kids. Presumably this guy is white with white partners producing. I don't know. To me, this sounds like kind of maybe not the ideal, but this is what you kind of want from life is more white babies coming out there and responsible middle-aged men. Let's see where he goes with this.
He's not married. He just lives with the mother of his children because
heaven forbid heaven forbid he step one step outside of the traditional role, the 1950s nuclear family role. They're not married. They've been together. They have a couple of kids, but he's not married. Jesus Christ.
That is why they talk all this old man shit, because they are just desperately conventional, scared people who cannot think their way out of these set moralities.
Absolutely, and because it is comforted, because it is traditional, because it is it is seen as the only way to be is this nuclear family idea, is this 1950s Ozzie and Harriet thing, which if you poke them about it, they're smart enough to go, well, history wasn't always that way. They understand a bit deeper history, but it is this is our tradition. We are white people, we are Europeans, and we just always had the white picket fence and the 2.5 children, et cetera. It's just the way things are. And the idea that, they're terrified. You're right. They're terrified of sexual mores not being that. They are terrified of suddenly not being Hyman on the totem pole, because suddenly, if women could fuck you and decide they don't want to fuck you again and then go fuck somebody that she likes better, that's terrifying, because suddenly that means you don't have control over that woman anymore. She might even go take a black dick. Man, she might go and eat a black pussy. Man, that is, can you imagine? I can just imagine these guys thinking about that concept.
It all tracks back to that. They're scandalized that this guy who by all other metrics seems to be doing fine, and even by their standards is doing what he's supposed to be doing. But he's not married. Even if they haven't legally formalized the property status of the woman. And all. I mean, we talked about it in this episode before. I mean, I'm very hesitant to do anything that sounds like collapsing the politics of this down into psychoanalysis. But this all, I mean, it's the same obsession with the idea of race mixing or miscegenation, whatever you want to call it. We talked about this when we talked about Birth of a Nation. That was the real horror in that film. The idea that black and white people would interbreed. And it all tracks back to these guys' desperate, raging insecurities about sex, and therefore about manhood and status and all that stuff.
And Thanksgiving, all those things. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
and it is like I hate. We've gone on. This will be almost a 2-hour episode. I'm sorry, it's very long. But we've gone through the whole thing, and it really is like, well, they're just fucking racist. That's the end of the day. They're just scared. They're just scared of more brown people being in their society. But I think it's worth going through, like explaining all these in these minute details. It's like these people are real. These are real human. They are not doing this for effect. They believe this 100%.
Yeah,
it's deeply stupid, but it's real. It's very real, and they do have a substantial audience, probably similar size. I don't know. I don't see their numbers, but it's probably at least similar to what we get, if not more. I don't know. It's hard to say, but these are prominent people within this world. Absolutely.
For the sake of their children. And he's talking about this 21-year-old girl that he wants to, and I would use the word corrupt. Like he just wants to
see, he's got this one girl. He's had his kids, but he's also like, yeah, I'm also attracted to this 21-year-old. Now, I don't think that's perfectly okay. I mean, age gaps in relationships, etc. We don't know anything about this guy. Maybe there's this 21-year-old girl just thinks she's really hot, and he's talking to Rolo about it because he, who knows,
Yeah.
I dare say men have lots of conversations about the young ladies they'd like to fuck that they'd have no intention of actually fucking. Okay. I know that for a fact. Okay. Guys like to talk a really big game. And if that girl came over to your place, spread her legs and lay down on the bed, most of those guys would have no idea what to do. I promise you that.
Have sex with her and not commit to her and do nothing, just do it over and over. Yeah. And that girl will become a whore that has sex with black men.
Jesus Christ. Oh, I was just saying about how I'm reluctant to say anything that sounds like I'm collapsing all this down to psychoanalysis. And then he just comes up with that. And I don't need to. I don't need to say anything. They're psychoanalyzing themselves in front of me.
And then he just tweeted it out. Exactly. All right, we got like 15 more seconds.
Because that's what happens when men that are in positions of power have sex with vulnerable women. Those women don't understand that man isn't trying to make them their wife. They don't understand that that's just a cum dumpster for them.
And we end on the cum dumpster. In this world, women have no agency. There is no sense in which women are having sex for their own complicated internal reasons, for the same reasons that a man would want to have sex. Sometimes people men sometimes really do just want to get up. Sometimes they're looking for sometimes it's friendship, sometimes it's something in between. We're human beings. And the same things that you say about men, you say about women, but the misogyny is so baked into this world. And the things that he believes an extreme version of them. But this goes all the way down, like traditional purity culture, all the way down. Very, very similar kinds of stuff is believed by these guys. And you hear it all the time in like manosphere forums and all that kind of stuff. It's just that women are just built fundamentally differently. And it's like, no, women are socialized to tell you things differently. Again, I have known many women perfectly happy to have a one night stand, one time roll in the hay that they find attractive. They do not often find me attractive enough for that, but I've seen it many times. It's fine.
I've heard of this happening.
I'm not saying I've never experienced it, but I'm not trying to paint myself as the great Lothario. Anyway, one thing we do not discuss on this podcast is my sex life. I guess we've gone a little bit further, but I kind of had to. Once I start talking about sex, it becomes very clear. I've had certain experiences. Anyway, I've thoroughly embarrassed Jack Graham. I think it's time. What did we learn today, Jack? What did you get out of this experience? What do you think the audience is going to get out of this experience?
I learned that Full House is just staggeringly boring, and
Yes.
a bunch of old guys or people that think and talk like old guys just complaining about people of color existing and Jews existing and women existing and all sorts of other things of that kind that they find deeply, deeply threatening on an existential level because they're just deeply scared, sad little losers. That's what I learned.
Yes.
Not to trivialize the bigotry or the anti-Semitism or the misogyny, indeed, for that matter. But yeah, it is as poisonous and potentially lethal as it is also deeply, profoundly, tragically pathetic.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that again, a bumper episode. I just started pulling clips. I'm like, all right, I guess this is gonna be a long one. Anyway, thanks a lot for being along, and
yes,
we will do more Nazis in the future, and hopefully, if we like this one, if people respond well to this one, we'll do some more stuff like this. I think it'll be. I think this is a format that works. Anyway,
I think we teased this one for a long time, and we certainly delivered on the tease.
Yes.
Nobody could accuse us of being a cock tease on this one.
Certainly not on this one. Not a literally, we are not cock teasing on this one. We really fulfilled on this.
Yeah,
we went all the way on that one.
Definitely our cum dumpsters this time round.